This is a fan-generated show. If you'd like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our new Rumble channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Obama's True Legacy, How He Transformed America. There's a reason why Mike Huckabee calls it a ferocious and chilling read. Order it now at Amazon.com or at FrontPageMag.com. Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, another fantastic program with another fantastic guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember we're a fan-generated program. We're also still under a lot of shadow banning and persecution by the deep state. So please help us out as much as you can. At the least, subscribe to our YouTube and Rumble channels and press instant notifications. Go to jamieglazov.com. Subscribe to our newsletter there, and if you're in a giving, generous mood, please help out the show. You can follow us on X at Jamie Glazov, on Facebook at Jamie Glazov, and most importantly, keep supporting the one and only Annie Cyrus at liveuptofreedom.com. What an honor to have with us this evening Kenneth Abramowitz, a national security threat analyst and author of The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. Ken, what an honor to have you on the show.
A pleasure to be with you.
Would you like to expand a little bit on the introduction of yourself?
Sure. I've been a business analyst in the healthcare field. I'm going to do this in 1 minute. For 25 years, going merrily along as an analyst on Wall Street, working 6 days a week, as I always do, just resting on the Sabbath. And then 9/11 struck. And when 9/11 hit, we were all traumatized in different ways. And I made a personal decision to analyze 9/11. Who did it? Why'd they do it? Who didn't stop them from doing it? And I embarked on now a new 25-year career, simultaneous with my now 45-year career in healthcare. And I used my analytical skills to teach myself about national security for 10 years. And then I set up a website, SaveTheWest.com, a little over 10 years ago, and I started writing articles every 2 weeks and started giving speeches. I give about 100 speeches or presentations a year. And then I wrote a book 5 years ago. I updated it 4 times. It's called The Multi-Front War. It's now in its 4th edition, and I just published the 4th edition a week or so ago on Amazon and other such internet outlets. And here I am today, now spending 3 days a week on national security, 3 days a week healthcare. Healthcare is a job, national security is a public service. And here I am with you today.
Well, that's incredible, Ken. You are a busy man. So I have heard about you that you can give a speech in 15 seconds or you can do it in 15 hours. You're very flexible in terms of timing, right?
Well, what happens is when you're the new kid on the block, so to speak, and there's other more famous politicians or national security so-called experts, and I would volunteer to speak at various events. And then people said, okay, fine, you'll be the warm-up act. You can speak for 5 minutes, or you can speak for 3 minutes, or sometimes 10 minutes. And so I've learned how to give a 1-hour speech in 5 minutes, because if that's all I'm allocated, then I better have a body of the speech and then a conclusion and get it all done, but with 1 hour of information or thoughts. So that's why I now specialize in short speeches, but still it contains all the issues that I want to mention.
Geez, I wish I could learn to do something like that. Ken, I don't want to, perhaps I'm not sure what's appropriate at this moment in terms of where you are. Maybe you don't want to talk specifically about it, but you are in Israel And very concerning is that an Iranian missile hit a place very close to your apartment building recently, right?
Yes.
And okay, but you're okay. Can you just give us the atmosphere, because that's very scary? How are you doing psychologically, or how are your neighbors doing? How's Israel? Give us the atmosphere, and also perhaps just what you want to share about what happened to you.
Well, there's two atmospheres. There's the atmosphere of my friends who are saying, are you safe? Are you safe? We're worried. We're worried. And then there's the atmosphere within the country, which is strong, strong resolve and dedication to the cause, and the cause of freedom, or as I call it, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everybody, versus the dictatorships, which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for me and my friends, but not for you. And so this never-ending battle of good and evil is apparent here, but the forces of good are very confident in themselves. And on the security side, when there is a missiles shot to the country, there's warnings you get on your phone. Usually get two warnings, and then there's sirens. And you have about 5 minutes to jump into whatever you want to jump into, put your sneakers on, and go to the stairwell, which is half protected, and then walk down to the basement, which is fully protected. Everyone in Israel has a house or an apartment building that has a safe room. It could be in the stairwell, or it could be in the basement, but in any case, it takes about 5 minutes to get your act together, get to the stairwell, and walk downstairs. And so that's I do that once or two times a day. The good news is that every day there's fewer missiles. So in the beginning, there was maybe a salvo of 75 or 50. Now it's down to about 20. Now they're still causing damage to some 20 areas, of course, but the various missile defense systems of the country shoot down about 90%. So still, if there's a salvo of 25, let's just say, that means 2 or 3 are going to get through and cause some damage. But at least the other 90% or so did just fine. And 20, 30 minutes later, your phone sends you a signal that it's okay to go back to your house or apartment.
This is, this is just, one can just imagine what kind of way this is to live. So how do you even get a good night's sleep? In other words, even when you go to sleep or try to go to sleep, this could happen at any moment during your sleep, right?
Any moment, anything can happen. And you're right, it does disturb your evenings. But for the past week, people have not been working. So you don't have to wake up at 8 o'clock to show up at your office soon thereafter. So you can sleep late. But the country Homeland Security just announced that it's okay to go back to work. And because every day they're shooting fewer and fewer missiles. They usually shoot them at night, usually in the middle of the night, for maximum inconvenience to everybody. And but the country's coming back. But for a week, there were only pharmacies and supermarkets open. Now there's a few restaurants and other things open. So I would say the country is operated maybe 30% of what it should, with everybody who can work at home working at home. But over the next day or 2 or 3, I think into next week, the country will snap back to its normal state.
Well, thank God. But we hear about how the children of Sderot have been living for so long, and these sirens, and you only have a couple seconds or a minute or whatever it is to get to a safe place. And what I'm saying here too is that there are people who have the luxury of turning off their phone and going to sleep and not being disturbed. You don't have that luxury. You guys have to keep it on at all times, and there could be a siren at any moment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. But by the way, humans are very adaptable creatures, and we figured out, and even the kids figure it out. I mean, when I go to the safe room in the basement, the kids at nighttime, the kids are in their parents' arms, trying to fall back to sleep. A few of them are jumping around and playing.
Yeah. What is it like in the safe room when you're in the safe room with other people?
Oh, well, you get to meet the 40 people or so in your apartment building, and there's a camaraderie, and you see people that you hadn't seen, you never met, and then you meet them every night. So you meet a new group of friends, and so again, people adapt, but by and large, they just sit and watch television, the news services, and so they get whatever update is available at that hour in the morning, and then walk back to the apartment, try to go to sleep, and sleep as long as humanly possible, because you're not going to work the next day. But as I say, going into next week, I think people are going to be going back into work. But meanwhile, the Israeli Air Force is ferociously bombing Iran. I'm not a military historian, but I bet in the history of warfare, nothing's happened like what's happening in Iran. Israel's basically going to destroy Iran within 10 days.
Well, I want to get to that. Just one more personal thing, and let's get to that. But my heart goes out to you. And, but just, for instance, the luxury that I have right now, I can just do this interview, and I think everything's probably going to be okay, unless 1 in a trillion something happens. But in your case, you look very relaxed. You seem like a very brave man, because something could happen at any second while I'm doing this interview with you, right?
Yes, any second, I can get a notice, and then I have to jump, because the notice gives me about 5 minutes before the missiles come. So, by the time you put whatever clothes you want on you and your sneakers and get to the stairwell, you got to run. And once I dilly-dallied, and by that I mean it was 6 minutes instead of 5 minutes, and boom, right near my apartment. But due to luck or help from up above, however you want to look at it, I was okay. But I won't make that mistake again.
Well, our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers are with you and with the Israeli people, and of course also with the Persian people, because we know that. Let's touch on that for a minute. I think the Israelis and the Persians are actually very good friends. It's just that demonic, satanic regime that's ruling over them, and I think that's very important to stress, right?
Demonic and satanic, you're being kind. I call them an Islamo-Nazi death cult, and but we're talking about the same people. And this criminal organization, which illegally took over the country in 1979, is still there, and they're terrorizing their people. Polls, to the extent that they're accurate, say that 80% of the people want to be part of Western civilization. They want to be friends with America and Israel, and 20% are basically stealing money from the other 80%. They're part of the criminal organization, either directly or indirectly. And so the 80% are want to take over, but the 20% have all the guns. So you have to be careful about taking over a death cult criminal organization, because the people with guns will shoot you, and they couldn't care less. There's no morality in the 20%. So if there's 90 million people in Iran, and the guards are ordered to kill 1 million people, they'll do it in a second until they run out of bullets. Israel's trying to make sure they run out of bullets by blowing up all their storage of weapons.
Yeah, well, we see what the mullahs have been doing to the outside world for a long time, what they're doing to their own people. Mahsa Amini, of course, represents very much the viciousness and barbaric nature of that regime, because that's the fate of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Iranians. So let's just get to the moral clarity here. We know we can give many examples of how the U.S. and right now and Israel together are trying to make sure that they don't hurt Iranian civilians. But the mullahs just bombed an Israeli hospital. And I think that that very much really, makes crystal clear evil and good, right?
It doesn't get clearer than that. So far, about 30 people have been killed in the Iranian bombings. They've sent about almost 500 missiles and about 200 drones. The drones aren't getting through, but remember, 500 missiles and 10% get through. You can see that's 50 missiles that hit something important, killing about 30 people, injuring 800 or so people. So it's pretty serious for those people, obviously. And one of the biggest causes of death are for people who don't get to their shelter fast enough, or people who sit in their living room and say, well, it's not going to happen to me. So there's been a number of the 25, 30 deaths that came about due to mistakes that people made. But it doesn't matter whether they made a mistake or not make a mistake. They're not deserving of being killed by an Islamo-Nazi death cult. And so now the amazing thing, just yesterday, at a big hospital in the south, in Beersheba, about 2 hours south of Tel Aviv, a bomb blew up a big wing of the hospital. And fortunately, the day before, the hospital administrators moved everybody to the underground. Every major Israeli hospital has a major underground. And so, but now 1,200 beds in the hospital, 350 are fine, but they're, excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. But you can see a 1,200 bed hospital suddenly became a 350 bed hospital. So where does everybody go? All right, well, they'll move them with ambulances up to 2 hours or so to the center of the country. But that's a big deal to have a 1,200 bed hospital lose 850 beds. But fortunately, people weren't there. So I don't think anyone got killed in that tragedy due to astute management by the Soroka Medical Center.
Ken, why did Israel strike? Why did it strike now? Do you support this strike? And just overall, how do you think it's going?
Well, it's going A++. In my own personal history, let's not go back in the ancient history. In my own personal history, I've never seen a war prosecuted like this. They caught the Iranians sleeping. By the way, Israel was caught sleeping October 7th. So good countries and bad countries can be caught sleeping. But they caught the bad guys sleeping. They killed roughly 10 government types and 10 military types and 10 scientist types, in 10 minutes, with a coordinated attack by various drones or planes or car bombs. So that's amazing. And then they're bombing about 100 sites every day. They have about 50 planes over Iran all the time. They refuel them because of obvious distance from Israel. And it's a precision attack unlike any. And I don't know how many civilians have been killed, but I'll guess that it's almost like Israel, 25, 30. Who knows, maybe 50. But they told people, leave Tehran, we're going to blow it up, but not blow it up the Israeli way, not the Iranian way. In other words, you search out targets, government buildings, military buildings, and you blow them up and nothing else. So I think civilian casualties are minuscule, and the damage is massive. And I assume this is going to be a 10-day war. It could be a 13-day war, but we're not talking about much more than that. And they're just going to blow up every important site that the planes find. And they also have drones flying all over the place. And when a drone sees a truck with missile launchers, they blow it up. And there's also hidden missile silos that they have to find and blow up. So there's a lot of things to blow up. And the Israeli pilots are doing a masterful job taking apart the country. And I don't think the leadership knows what to do other than just hope that it ends. I was going to say that they're probably praying, but they're praying to Satan. But I guess you can call that still prayers. So they're praying to Satan for safety from the Israeli fury, because this is payback for October 7th. October 7th was Israel's equivalent of Pearl Harbor or 9/11. And the Israeli government and the Israeli people are livid beyond belief. And they want the head of the snake, the head of the octopus gone. And this is their chance to do it.
Well, absolutely, Ken, and I think absolutely October 7th, but every single way that Israelis have suffered, Iran's had its hand in it one way or another over the decades. But when you say 10 days, 13 days, whatever it is, how exactly do you envision it ending? Like, does Israel just get the job done and go home? Or does Khamenei, I don't think Khamenei will ever say we give up. And it would be so disheartening if these SOBs stay in power. This is the thing, because then they'll just start regrouping again. So, I mean, we're just praying, hoping that they'll take Khamenei out or that he'll run away somewhere. And so I guess I'm talking about regime change. Do you think it's very important? And then again, who does it? Like, because, you know, there's those that say, look, Israelis and Americans should not be doing this. They've got to leave this to the Iranian people themselves. But it would sure be wonderful if the Iranian people could overthrow Khamenei and these mass murderers, right?
That's for sure. Now, but before that happens, Israel has to blow up more things. So you have to blow up every police station, for example. You have to blow up every building controlled by the Revolutionary Guards, what they call the IRGC. They also have an internal police group of another criminal organization called Besiege. They're the ones that when there's riots and or demonstrations, they just go in and kill people. So they've got to blow up every building controlled by the Besiege, every building by IRGC, every building by the military, every building by the political realm. I wonder to myself whether they'll blow up mosques. I haven't heard any stories of their blowing up mosques. So anyways, whole lot of bombing going on because you have to make it safe for the good guys to come out and save the country from the bad guys. Now, there's a few historical precedents to look at times like this. There's Libya, where the U.S. caused regime change unnecessarily. By the way, I'm a fan of regime change for bad guys, but Libya was not an example of a good regime change. The Obama administration wanted regime change to put the Muslim Brotherhood in power. Because Obama being Muslim, he wanted the Muslim Brotherhood to take over the Middle East for the Sunnis, and he wanted Iran to take over the Middle East for the Shiites. So the U.S. government fermented regime change, and we ended up having a civil war, and now we have the country split between two different sides. And I just saw on the internet that there was an article saying that President Trump was anxious about having a Libya story where you have a perpetual civil war between the two warring factions. Now, if you go to World War II, to other death cults, you had the Hitler death cult and the Nazi death cult, and Hitler went down with the ship. And no one tried to get him to surrender. And then you had the Japanese Imperial Army death cult, and they went down with the ship until the two nuclear explosions. It took two, by the way. They didn't surrender after one, but after two, they surrendered. And but the emperor was not killed, was purposely not killed by America in order to show some sensitivity to the Japanese people and their tradition. And so, but in any case, Japan surrendered. The Nazis surrendered. By the way, only around 10 or 15 of the bad guys went to jail after that. So we didn't have a mass arrest of the bad guys. And then one more example, in Romania, Ceausescu was the president. And the people, and there was a little town, I happened to have visited by pure coincidence 40 years ago or something, called Timișoara. And the police killed a handful of kids, students. And there was a big rally outside the palace of Ceausescu, a glorious palace. And the people in the back started chanting, Timișoara, Timișoara. It's similar to remember the Alamo, remember the Alamo, remember Pearl Harbor, remember the Maine. You know, we have famous expressions in America that I hope our children, students are still taught. And pretty soon everyone started saying, Timișoara, Timișoara, and they rushed into the castle. They were not shot. The police did not shoot them, and then they took over and they killed Ceausescu and his wife. So there's many models for death cults. They all end badly.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Ken. But in the cases of Saddam or Assad or Gaddafi, we see after these ISIS movements, Al-Qaeda movements, these jihadi movements. But in this Persian context, it's very different. I mean, almost every Persian person I've ever met in my life is, to say the least, very uninterested in Islamic doctrine, in the Quran, in jihad. They're usually very pro-American. They're usually quite pro-Israeli. We're dealing with a very different mindset when it comes to Persians, right?
Yes. Now, bear in mind, Islam is an imposed religion.
Yes.
So the early Muslim, Muhammad, for example, and his early followers, roughly in the year 630, were living in Saudi Arabia. And then they came up with this idea to take over the world. Now, which is, by the way, typical for death cults. Death cults always have a leader who wants to take over the world and kill everyone who's not like him. And so they spanned out to 55 countries, of which 20 were Christian countries, and they forcibly converted everybody to Islam. So Islam is imposed top down from above on the Persian people, but the Persian people have been around 4,000 years. Who knows, maybe longer. And so I don't think they particularly appreciate the imposed Islam into their brains in society. And so now this is a revolt of 1,400 years of anger at the imposition of Islam onto their culture.
Well, absolutely. There's this saying with a lot of dictatorships, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. But I would bet almost everything I got that in this particular context, it's just not true. It would be so wonderful to see the Persian people finally overthrow these devils. We're going to take a quick break with our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
And that's right. Make sure to go to mypillow.com or mystore.com and use promo code GG21. You can get a discount of up to 60% off all the amazing products, and you're going to be helping out both Mike Lindell and the Glazov Gang. And if you like one-of-a-kind handmade art, make sure to go to lutfstudio.com and purchase resin art pieces made by our producer, the one and only Annie Cyrus. Use promo code Glazov to get special discounts. You're going to be helping out Annie as well as the Glazov Gang. Ken, may I ask you, how is your My Pillow going, or have you got that luxury yet?
Yes, yes, I'm a big fan of My Pillow. I'm a big fan of Mike Lindell, and I only met him briefly at some event at Mar-a-Lago a couple of years ago, but I look forward to spending more time and giving him a national security update. He's one of my big heroes.
Fantastic. Our producer, Annie Cyrus, for obvious reasons, needs to be brought into this discussion right now. Annie, I know that your whole heart and soul is monitoring this situation every second of the day. What are your thoughts right now, Annie?
Well, thank you, Jamie. And yes, I can say that it is officially 7 days of around the clock monitoring on personal levels and reporting on professional level. And I have tried my best to leave my emotion out of my reporting, but I will be lying if I didn't say that my heart bleeds for all the Iranian people, those who lost their lives, those who are injured, those who are, homeless right now. And also the Israeli people who were innocent people who were specifically and purposely targeted by the mullah's regime. But one thing I can say is as these days are developing, it's becoming more and more real for the people inside Iran and those of us outside. We're receiving messages, voice messages and voice calls on, we're so close that people inside Iran soon can welcome those of us exiled back to Iran. And I don't think this time is a hope. Of course, there's always hope, but we're really close. However, my biggest concern is with a lot of talking heads out there on our side, on either mainstream media or independent media. We are creating a little bit of a dangerous sabotage. We are defending the regime without defending it. The narratives are not clear. They are twisted. And I understand some are coming from fear of possibly United States of America getting involved with the war. But I still feel that it's very unfair to not tell the truth, not to encourage Iranian people to take their freedoms back. By the way, I want to say for the record, I agree. We should not get involved. We don't need to send our troops there. We can support Israel the way we've been doing it until today. But with that long rant, I apologize. I would like to know your thoughts on, am I being biased? Am I expecting too much? Or are you also experiencing the talking heads not helping, but rather being dangerous?
Well, there's a basic misconception in America. Americans are good people, and they don't understand evil people. Now, we do in the movies. When you see a John Wayne movie from my era or a Star Wars movie, it takes like 3 seconds to determine who's good and who's evil. But in the real world, there's a misunderstanding of evil. And Americans think, including our leaders, the biases, remember, we're a democracy, so the leaders reflect the will of the people. There's a feeling that we have two oceans and that Iran's over there, wherever that is. And it really doesn't have that much to do with America. Iran wants to kill everyone in Israel, but that's Israel's problem. And it's not really America's problem. But Israel is our loyal ally. I would argue Israel is our only ally. And so there's a deep appreciation of Israel. And Christianity, remember, is an outgrowth of Judaism. So the Judeo-Christian culture, philosophy, history, tradition, belief in the Ten Commandments, among others, belief in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for everybody, those general principles are shared throughout both societies. And so there's a desire to help Israel in any way possible. But the feeling is that a misunderstanding. Iran has promised to kill everyone in America. When I say that to American politicians, they go, what? I didn't see that. I said, well, what do you think death to America and death to Israel means? Well, it means death to Israel. I said, yeah, it means death to Israel. Israel's 10 million people, 80% Jewish, but also means death to America. We're 350 million people, 90% Christian. So if they want death to America, they're talking about killing Christians. And death to Israel, they're talking about killing Jews. And so you see that? Oh, well, they don't mean it about us. You know, they're emotional, they're exaggerating, they're just saying this for public consumption. And I say, well, look, if a country announces death to America and death to Israel, I think they're American enemy. And so the feeling, so because of that misconception, basically Israel was on its own. And basically Israel said, look, someone has to stop this Islamo-Nazi death cult. In Europe, you're not going to do it. America, you're capable of doing it, but you don't seem to want to do it. So we're going to save Israel, and in the process, save Judeo-Christian society. Now, there's 2.5 billion Christians. Israel's also saving 1 billion Hindus, India. And so why has little Israel been nominated either officially or unofficially by all the Christians and all the Hindus to save Western civilization? And the answer is Israel, Judaism, is the mother of Western civilization. Everybody else is the cousin, an aunt or an uncle. And as you know, aunts, uncles, and nieces and nephews aren't the mother. And so Israel, as the mother of Western civilization, is basically saving Western civilization, which is, by the way, just a code name for democracy, is basically saving democracy, the will of the people, from the tyrants, from the dictators, from the death cults, all by itself. Although, of course, 2/3 of their weapons come from America. Their planes come from America. So America is indirectly involved, but Israel and Israeli soldiers and pilots are directly involved. And that's why we're watching Israel save Western civilization in a 10 or 14-day, whatever it is, exercise. We're not talking about a 6-month exercise or 3 months. Iran will be blown to bits. The evil part of Iran will be blown to bits with hardly touching the normal part of, in other words, the civilians at the same time. So it's a marvel to watch.
Absolutely. And yes, I believe one of the reasons we are seeing a bit of, let's say, for lack of a better term, panic inside US is a lot of our fellow Americans are projecting, not knowing the difference between Iran and Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya or Syria. You know, the history, the heritage, the long history of battles and survival. They're very worried about another 20 years of pointless war. But I do agree with you. This is definitely not Iraq or Afghanistan, or this is not even a forced regime change. People of Iran have been trying to topple this regime on their own, empty-handed for many years. But I am very glad that, of course, I have had the honor to
be behind the scene with Dr. Jamie Glazov for 13 years, and I'm always blessed that he's not afraid to tell the truth. But I'm extra blessed to know that you're also out there on the side of the truth and not afraid. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you very much. I'm just a concerned citizen who's livid still from 9/11, just as Israelis are livid from October 7th, and I remember the Alamo. So I have an expression: the forces of evil are good at being evil, and the forces of good are bad at being good. So I'm trying to close the gap, as you are, by the way. We're all just trying to close the gap of making good people better at being good, or more educated at being good, to counteract the evil people who are so good at being evil.
Well, thank you, Annie. A lot to say here, Ken. I want to just say this get this out as briefly as I can. I follow your work very closely, and it very much resonates with me, your arguments about this endless war we're in, because this is really, as you lay out, this is really between people of faith and the pagans, and it's been going on since the beginning of time. And so I'm also very interested in the willful blindness, and Kenneth Levin has written about this in the Oslo syndrome, what happens to people under siege and how they delude themselves. And there's a huge Stockholm syndrome among many people, and especially in the West, when they face communism, when they're facing jihad, etc. And so they confuse their political beliefs with their emotional incapacity. They just can't accept the existence of evil. And so part of this existence of the evil is you document and talk about. So you talk about the people of faith versus the pagans, and that this is going on and on and on. So I always try to be a little bit careful in prying into people's faith. I'll just say on my end, I'm a Christian. I think I can safely assume that you are of the Jewish faith. But what we share, and I very much appreciate your documentation and talking about child sacrifice, because we know that this is what, even though we have different conceptions of Satan in our faiths, Christianity and Judaism, we share a lot there, but we know that demons love child sacrifice. And so it goes back to the pagans, but you have made the point, and I've been arguing this for years, and Anna Geifman has written about this as well, because when you look at Hamas, you see child sacrifice. When you look at Islam overall, you see child sacrifice. You look at jihad, you see child sacrifice. You look at the Iranian mullahs, you see child sacrifice. Well, what do you know? You take a look at the left and look at the Democrats. It might not be crying with joy that their son died in jihad trying to kill Christians and Jews, but you've got the abortion death chambers, right? So the left worships at the altar of abortion. Wherever you look at this evil and you see this leftist Islamic alliance, you see child sacrifice. And that says it all, doesn't it? Let me hand that over to you in terms of this eternal war and how child sacrifice is one of the main narratives of how demons operate.
Well, I characterize our current war as World War III, but many aspects of World War III are actually World War I. It began with the beginning of time, the battle between we the people and they the elites. We the people we call democracies, they the elites we call dictatorships. This battle's been going on since the beginning of humans. So although I call it World War III, you can equally call it World War I, or the original World War I. That we're in. Another way to characterize it is God versus the pagans. We the people, believe in God, and through history, different concepts of God, but we believe in one God. They, the forces of evil, or the pagans, basically believe in Satan. You can call it a battle of God versus Satan, or we the people versus they, the elites. And there's three color-coded enemies that we're fighting today: the reds, the greens, and the blues. The reds are the communists, traditional color for communists, China, Russia, North Korea, among others. The greens are the Islamists, not Islam, Islamists, the people trying to impose Islam on other people. That would be Iran on the Shiite side and Qatar on the Sunni side. And then you have the blues, color-coded blue for the United Nations color, which are the globalists. That's the UN, World Economic Forum, drug cartels, and certain social media companies that are trying to shadow ban you and other people. So these are the forces of evil. I call them all pagans. They control roughly half the world, and they've declared war on the democracies. And so the war between dictatorships and democracies, I call World War III or World War I, however you want to look at it. And that's the battle that we're in. And the forces of democracy are losing. And Israel's about to flip the table, about to flip a major dictatorship in, I don't know, I can't call it a democracy, but let's just say a country run by the will of the people as opposed to the dictatorships. And this is a big, big change. It's the beginning of saving Western civilization. You know, Christians have been losing for 1,400 years against the Muslims, and Jews have been losing also 1,400 years with a few exceptions. It's finally now for the Jews and Christians to work together and start flipping these death cults into normal countries.
Amen. And Israel's doing what a lot of people and states should have done a long time ago. We can only pray, and we're praying that this death cult will be overthrown in Iran at the end of all of this. Ken, I've always been interested in gulag denial, in jihad denial when it comes to the left, and I just studied it my whole life. And it's very interesting. The moment you start talking about the evil of our adversaries, the leftist right away wants to say, no, it's not that bad, and we are just as bad, if not worse, and so that's why you have Noam Chomsky trying to deny the refugee what the refugees were saying coming out of Pol Pot's Cambodia. The left is always trying to deny. So right now, if anybody starts talking about what happened to Mahsa Amini and what's happening to Iranian dissidents and to Iranian women, the moment you talk like that around a leftist, you already know what's going to happen. And so on The View, very typically, Whoopi Goldberg, she just can't control herself. But in America, the black people suffer just as bad, if not worse, than the Iranian people. This even goes without saying. Nobody's saying that there isn't suffering everywhere. We're not saying that black people haven't suffered injustice in the past in the United States, that on some levels they might be suffering some injustice today, just like there's injustice everywhere. We got all that. But for Whoopi to be sitting there, the wealthy person that she is, hosting that show and how she lives, and the very fact that she can walk around the way she wants to walk around is how she's dressed, and she gets to go safely home. For her to say that, when we, just for an example, know what happens to Iranian women and what's happened to Persian women throughout the years in terms of acid attacks on their faces, in terms of the executions, in terms of the rapes, in terms of the tortures, what a disgusting thing for her to say, right?
Well, let me put it in perspective. The thesis of my book, The Multi-Front War, was that World War III is much different than World War I and II. World War I and II were fought over there. Remember, there was a famous song, Over There. World War III, to quote the Beatles, is here, there, and everywhere. So our foreign enemies, the Reds, the Greens, and the Blues, are operating within the U.S. and have taken over half of the U.S. through their agents. And their agents have a special name. They're called Democrats, because they're not really Democrats. They're representatives of the Reds, the Greens, and the Blues. So our foreign enemies have penetrated our culture. And half of our states are run by Democrats with sanctuary cities, because they do not think the federal government has a right to be involved in their states. Well, there's another name for the Democrats, and besides the Reds, the Greens, the Blues, and that's the name that they used about 160 years ago. They're the Confederates. We're still fighting our Civil War. And then the Confederates have conveniently changed their name to Democrats so that we forget that they declared war on the North in 1861. And we're still fighting our Civil War between the Confederates, and the Confederates are now working for our foreign enemies, the Reds, the Greens, and the Blues. So whenever you see Whoopi or other people with alien beliefs on TV, those are beliefs put into them. They don't even know it, but put into them through their schooling, through media, from the Reds, the Greens, and the Blues, and they now represent our foreign enemies.
Thank you. Annie, in terms of, and our hearts go out to you, Annie, in terms of everything you suffered in your childhood in Iran, every way that you know how Iranian women suffer and Iranians suffer. Your thoughts on Whoopi's comment?
Let me try to do this professionally.
No bad words.
Whoopi,
No foul language.
I have been, trust me, I have passed my test in the last 7 days of being on air. Whoopi has a long history of showing how ungrateful she is for the blessings Lord has given her for just the fact of being born outside of tyrannical, murderous regimes like Iran. However, under the circumstances of when she said what she said, I would have no problem, absolutely no problem, paying personally for her ticket to move to Iran and experience life in Iran as a woman and try to have a show and look the way she does. Because sometimes it feels like some people will never understand or comprehend the level of evil, as Ken mentioned earlier, unless they are looking at it in the eye or they are forced to live under it every day. I will continue praying for her and anybody like her. However, I think she does need to look in the mirror and get her hatred for America, for freedom, and for liberty under control before she makes any more insulting comments like that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Annie. In all my years of study of this, one thing that just crystallized for me is, you see, if they admit that there's any ideology or system that's our enemy that's more evil, then we would have to admit that our way of life is good and worth protecting and defending and saving. But because they want to destroy our society, they can't accept the evil of our foreign adversaries. So that's the key. They can never admit really what the Iranian dictatorship and monstrous death cult, as Ken calls it, is. All good things must come to an end, including a conversation with a great stand-up guy like Ken Abramowitz. But Ken, everybody should go to savethewest.com, if I'm correct, and give us a couple final brief words of wisdom and how people can support you and follow you.
Yes, people should go to savethewest.com. They should sign up. It's complimentary. And I write an article every 2 weeks. And there's a pop-up menu. You put your email address in and you get my article every 2 weeks. And I explain week after week how to save Western civilization. I monitor like 100 different issues. And every 2 weeks, you'll get a thought that's a quick read. It's always like 5-10 minutes to read. And then you can order my book, the 4th edition of the Multi-Front War. The book stays the same every time I have a new edition, but I add a new chapter. So I added a new chapter on 2025 and 2026, forecasting what the next year or two will look like.
Okay.
And over time, you'll learn how to be better at being good, so we can all collectively do a better job against the forces of evil.
Amen. In terms of grading, like A+, A minus, B, C-, etc. In terms of Trump and Iran right now, what grade do you give?
Well, it bounces around. It had been a C during the 2 months of senseless negotiations, but politically, I understand why you have to do that. But Iran's an existential threat to America. President Trump, I don't think his team knew that Iran could have a nuclear weapon any day, put it on a ballistic missile system, and reach either American soldiers or America mainland over time. But anyways, we dilly-dallied for 2 months of senseless negotiations, and now he's finally serious. But bear in mind, within the Trump administration, there's two voices that haven't reconciled themselves. There's the America First people that we voted for, and the America Alone people that we didn't vote for. And so there's internal battles between those two groups. We want the America First people, not the isolationists, to win.
Right, but what's your grade right now?
Right now, I just wrote something on this on my website. I gave President Trump and his team an A for domestic policy and a B- for foreign policy. I want that B-. There's certain simple things he can do to get it up to a B and a B+ and an A, and I expect him to do that.
Okay, and what grade do you give Netanyahu in terms of the war?
Netanyahu, before October 7th, Israel was caught sleeping. And so a little bit like a FDR problem. FDR and America were caught sleeping before Pearl Harbor, so they would have gotten a D, and Netanyahu would have gotten a D. And then the trauma happens of Pearl Harbor or October 7th, and Netanyahu now gets a solid A.
Wow.
And I'm very, very proud of him and the Israeli people and particularly the military. So it's a marvel to watch.
Fantastic. Okay, well, our prayers go to the Lord for our victory against this evil death cult, and that the Persian people can overthrow these monsters that have been ruling them for so long. Ken Abramowitz, thank you so much for standing up for the truth and for getting all the good facts out there about everything. Thank you so much.
A pleasure to be with you anytime.
Thank you for joining us. Go to savethewest.com, and we'll see you soon. Good night.